Our next session will be about executive buy-in, and I'm very happy to welcome Michael Harnum on this virtual stage. Hi, Michael. It's very nice to have
Alex.
you. Michael will share with us an executive perspective on how to take the attentiveness of your senior leaders and make the most of it in very practical ways. Michael is the CEO of ESG. He created the concept of customer success as a service, and he has over 30 years of experience maximizing employee productivity, improving customer satisfaction, and helping businesses grow. Before joining ESG in 2016, Michael led a worldwide team at ServiceSource. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in Slido, and we'll go through the question at the end of the session. Michael, over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Despite 30 years experience, I'm somehow still only 28. So a couple things to kick off as we get started here. It's interesting, my observation of the prior sessions, that we have kind of developed our own vernacular as customer success professionals. It's become a pretty technical industry. And I think that is indicative of the maturity that we've had there. But I'm not going to talk about the technical aspects of it. We have our own acronyms now. I'm going to step back and talk about a different approach that I think is critical to each of your successes as a customer success leader. And that is specifically that we've wanted a seat at the table as CS leaders. We have asked for attention, we've asked for budget, we've asked for headcount, we've asked for a lot of things. My observation in the marketplace is we are now beginning to get that attention. And so I want to focus in on what do you do with that attention now that you have received it? So a couple things from my vantage point so that you can understand where I'm coming from in the context of my comments. So number one, I am a CEO, so I have to process a lot of meetings and a lot of information, whether they're related to customer success or not. I am the recipient of a lot of these meetings and a lot of this information. So part of what I'm sharing with you is how I think about that with my schedule, with my budget, with my balance sheet, with my responsibility to the board and to investors. So I'm going to infuse some of my comments with that perspective. But the second is, as Alex mentioned, we at ESG, we do what we call customer success as a service. It is an outsourced customer success solution that includes virtual customer success managers, as well as strategy services in building your customer success practice. I'm actually in our customer success center in Denver, Colorado today. And I only mention that because we serve as the customer success function for a lot of big software companies. And so I see some of the behavior that I'm going to talk to you about, some of the examples I'm going to use come from our own customer base, right? So we live inside of, or in some cases are the customer success organization for a variety of global software companies. And hopefully some of those examples will be meaningful to you. So Bruce, you can go ahead and put up that first slide. And so as we think about, this may seem really simple and really elemental, the one before that, Bruce, and we will cover some basic things that I think will enhance your ability to, once you get the attention, to make the most of it, right? Beginning to get the seat at the table that we wanted. And I wanted to summarize some things really, really simply that may seem basic, but oftentimes I will tell you as a CEO, the things that I have on this slide are often missed, right? And so the headline that I would put on all of this, and if you hear nothing else I say today, I would just remember two words: play offense. Play offense. And I'm going to give you 6 ways to play offense, both as a leader, but I'll give you some examples specifically as a customer success leader. I will tell you that I came up with kind of the theme of playing offense for this message because I've spoken with several customer success leaders, some as recently as this week, who have a new manager, their new reporting structure. They're reporting to someone new in the organization. And they'll say things to me like, well, I'm going to meet with that person and I need to get their understanding and their philosophy on customer success. And I need them to tell me what they think customer success means and what that means at the company. And of course, you need to listen, you need to be empathetic, you need to learn all of those things. But I think if you walk into a meeting, especially with someone new, and your goal is, I want them to tell me what the philosophy should be, you're immediately playing defense. And you may not like your answer. And so I would encourage you to think about how do you shape the answer that you want to get out of time with a new chief revenue officer, a CEO, a chief customer officer, whoever perhaps you're presenting to the board, but really play offense. So here are the 6 ways that, in my experience, you can go do that. The first is to set the agenda. Like, what are we meeting about? Again, super simple, but I can tell you this week alone, I've walked into 5 meetings that I had no idea what we were talking about. I knew they were on my calendar. I knew I had a role. I knew someone wanted my opinion or my perspective on something and wanted to present something to me, but it wasn't intuitive to me why we were there. So an example of what that could look like for you as a CS professional could be something like, we're here today to talk about our historical performance as a customer success organization. And I also have a vision for where I would like to take the team and the benefits to the business. And that would mean, it could follow something like, people, processes, and tools. And I'm going to give you a summary of each of those 3. And at the end, I've got an ask. However you structure the agenda, make sure you put some thought into what is the purpose of the meeting, what are the items, and what are you trying to accomplish? Really, really important out of the gate. And then you've set the tone for the meeting in terms of, okay, you're leading this discussion. And I think that's important to get right as you start those conversations. The second one, having an informed perspective. Okay. And so an informed perspective would be, you've thought about where your organization is, you've thought about how it fits in with your overall company goals and initiatives, and you have a perspective. That could be super refined. Perhaps you have a dashboard, perhaps you have KPIs, perhaps you have a lot of that. We'll get into that with the next comment here about infusing your message with data. But having an informed perspective could be as loose as you are directly and frequently talking to customers, and you are bringing that perspective into the meeting and into the discussion. And so a lot of people that you'll be meeting with perhaps don't talk to customers regularly. And your informed perspective could be something like, for example, I've spoken with 6 customers in the last 3 days. And here's one theme that I saw that we're doing really well that we should probably do more of. And here's something that I saw that is a challenge for us that I do think we need to work on. So an informed perspective that is, and it can be as subjective as I just laid it out, but you being the customer advocate, being the customer relationship owner, and talking directly to customers is very, very powerful. And to bring that insight into a discussion with an informed perspective is really, really powerful. It's tied to the third one there, 1C, infusing your message with data, right? So opinions have a certain amount of weight, right? And that will form your perspective. But if you can back that up with data, now you're really, really in a strong position. And so that could look like things like our time to onboarding. Because we've done this thing, our time to onboarding has gone from 90 days to 70 days. Our customer satisfaction scores have gone from here to there. Our renewal rates have gone from here to there. And I'm using a mix of leading and lagging indicators, of course, but I'm trying to give you a few examples to think of when you're thinking about infusing your message with data. It could also be something like, I talked to 12 customers in the last 30 days, and more than 3/4 of them were not even aware that we launched new feature X, right? And all of them would benefit from that. But we've got a communication problem with our customer base because 3/4 of the customers I'm speaking with aren't even aware that we've invested in the platform in a way that is meaningful to them. And my recommendation to solve that would be, right? So now you're beginning to, and that's a loose example. If you don't have a ton of KPIs and a ton of dashboards, that's not an excuse for not having an informed perspective that is infused by data. Get on the phone, talk to some customers yourself, and make sure you're bringing that insight into the session. The fourth one is a really powerful way to accomplish your objectives, and that is telling a story using direct customer input, right? So it could be a scenario where you're doing an executive business review with a customer, and let's say you've done a few of them, and you're beginning to notice some themes. And so you're telling a story about a customer purchased the platform, for the following value, and that's what they're expecting to get out of it. And in some ways we're exceeding, and in some ways we're falling short. We've identified an action plan, and this is what we're going to go do. Now, if I step back from that, I would also look at that same issue. While I haven't spoken with every one of our customers, probably is existing throughout the customer base. So while we are proactively solving that issue in this one instance, there are several other areas where we can and should be solving the same issue. And so a customer story, a customer testimonial, ideally, if you can have some good things that the company is doing and some challenges that you need to go fix, those customer stories are very powerful in terms of making the most of the attention that you're getting. The fifth, so 1E, making a recommendation. This is really where your professionalism and your mettle are tested a little bit, right? So anyone can talk to customers, anyone can understand issues, and anyone can report the news. I will tell you, I place a premium on people that can not only report the news, but can interpret the news and apply that interpretation inside of your system, inside of your ecosystem, to make the most of whatever the situation is. So if you identify through this customer engagement that you've got a specific problem, just make sure that you've got a couple ideas that are documented, that are tied back to the problem, that will give you an opportunity to make the most of what you've learned in solving your customer problems and making a proactive recommendation. Okay, the sixth way that I would recommend that you play offense when you get the attention of your executive team is to anchor whatever you're recommending. I think we should build a digital customer success practice. I think we need to extend our reach into our customer set with a couple more CSMs. I think this platform works, but if we added this in, it would give us the predictive analytics to do the following. Whatever your set of recommendations are, being able to tie your recommendations back to a corporate objective that resonates with the executive team or the board that you're presenting to is really critical to your success. So I'll give you an example of that. Let's say a corporate strategic objective is something around customer obsession, something around placing customers first, something around reducing a retention rate, increasing a retention rate, rather reducing a churn rate, got that backwards. And what you're trying to do, I would encourage you not to let your initiatives live in their own discrete tower, right? But be able to tie as empirically as possible what you are recommending the business does back to a corporate objective, right? And so again, remember, this is under the banner of playing offense, where you're trying to present some compelling ideas. You're probably asking for at least time, possibly money in the form of tools or headcount, and the ability to communicate that your efforts and your initiatives are helping to accomplish the overall corporate objectives, really, really critical. So those are the 6 ways that I would recommend that when you get the attention that you've been seeking, that you build a strategy to play offense in those sessions. And I wish you the best in doing that. The second point here is that these jobs are difficult. And so I would encourage you to embrace and even seek discomfort. I don't know how many of you have teenagers. I have a few. And what I've noticed recently is this came up yesterday, and it got me thinking about comfort and discomfort. Summertime here in Colorado, so it just seems that there is an obsession with comfort, meaning I've got to have air conditioning on when it's hot. I've got to have heat on when it's cold. And I don't know. I haven't found a climate that is suitable to a teenager yet. Meaning there's always heat on or there's always air on. And so I asked the question the other day: is there a temperature that wouldn't require either heat or air? That's kind of a silly little sidebar, but you get the point. Is that if you are willing to put yourself in some level of discomfort, that is the time where adaptation and learning occurs the most. I do a lot of biohacking. We've all paid a lot of attention to our immune systems over the last 18 months. One of the things that I've studied is the effect of a sauna, 15-minute sauna on your immune system. And all of that is putting your body in a place of discomfort so that your body can adapt to that discomfort. And all of those adaptations that your body is making are positive for our immune system and good for your health. That same example plays very well into a corporate environment, right? An organism of a corporate structure behaves in much the same way, right? And so if you're looking for a nice, safe, repeatable job, probably customer success is not the industry for you. There are plenty of opportunities to make yourself uncomfortable and to embrace and even seek that level of discomfort as a way to pull yourself forward, as a way to force yourself as a professional to adapt, because you absolutely will adapt. You are 100% of the time adapting to something. It's your choice what you're adapting to. Right. And so if you're willing to take on a project, if you're willing to make a presentation, if you're willing to lead an EBR, whatever your sense of discomfort is, I would just encourage you to do that. And it's going to pull you forward, and it's going to make playing offense a heck of a lot easier. And then finally on this slide, these are hard jobs. So we're going to need to be resilient. We're going to need to be relentless. Like, we know what we're doing is right. We know customer success is at the foundation of a healthy, thriving, growing revenue annuity stream inside of our businesses, but expect pushback, right? There will be people that will think customer service is the entire answer and we don't really need customer success. There are those that think, oh, we're going to build a customer success team, or we're going to further invest in a customer success team. That's going to have an immediate impact on retention rate. And we all know that, we're building a long-term system and a long-term framework that absolutely has a positive impact on the business, but you usually need a little bit longer than 90 days. And so finally on that next slide, Bruce, what I wanted to give you was a framework for if you are thinking, thank you, about that's great. How do I communicate all of this in a cohesive framework? We at ESG have come up with what we call a customer success maturity model. This doesn't have to be your model. I'm not trying to sell you this. I just offer this as a framework to organize your thinking and potentially communicate everything that I just mentioned. So we think about the maturity of a customer success team in 3 areas: build, operationalize, and then transform. And obviously your maturity accelerates as you go through build, operationalize to transform. And so there are 17 in our model. There are 17 dimensions. They start really simple. Number 1 is segmentation. How and why do you segment your customers? And how many dimensions of data do you pull into that? All the way up to 17, which is we are successfully monetizing our customer success practice. I offer this as a framework for one specific reason. Oftentimes, there is an immediate return expected on building customer success, okay? And there are some short-term wins, some quick wins that you can get, but rather I would encourage you to communicate to your leadership team in evolution of the maturity of the organization and capabilities that you're adding at every step along the way, things the organization is able to do today that it wasn't able to do yesterday. And then fast forward 120 days, now we can do these things that we weren't able to do yesterday. And as your capabilities grow, as your toolkit expands, you are then able to begin to see the impact of your business. But you're not simply just saying, we need customer success so our retention rate goes up by 20%. Right? That could be a lagging indicator, but these are the steps along the way that a lot of customer success organizations are taking to make sure you have the best chance possible of achieving whatever KPIs you're setting out to achieve. So in closing, I would encourage all of you to just be as bold as possible, to have the courage of your conviction that what you're doing is and will continue to have a bigger positive impact on your businesses, and to represent that level of confidence and energy in every interaction that you have with the executive team of your company, and go for it. It's needed.
Thank you so much, Michael. Great recommendation. I like the fact that it was super pragmatic, super effective. Also glad I don't have teenagers at home right now. The questions, we have a few questions in Slido. The first, I'm going to choose the last one actually, because it's about storytelling. So do you have a success story to share related to executive engagement and your customer success strategy?
Yeah, so the biggest example, and we see this example popping up, Alex, in a variety of our customers, but it is helping our customers go from like a premise-based solution that is, non-recurring revenue to a cloud-based solution that is recurring revenue, right? And so these companies don't have customer success practices because they're legacy technology companies where if you buy from them, they put a box and wires and software on your premise. And so the storyscape that we try to create with these companies is, once your revenue model changes from premise-based non-recurring to cloud-based recurring revenue, and it becomes a subscription, there is risk introduced to your revenue stream that wasn't there before. So risk can be a powerful, and fear in general, can be a powerful force in terms of telling stories. And so the concern is guaranteed revenue before, at-risk revenue now, although the revenue can be much greater and could continue for a long time, or it could not. So the storyscape we create is, let's make sure that you've got a customer success practice that is world-class, and we help our customers set up customer success centers of excellence is the term that we've been using. And so that global center of excellence helps them preserve that revenue annuity stream. But just that fact alone, the fact that the nature of the revenue and the fact that it's at risk now when it wasn't before, creates a really compelling opportunity to write that story inside of our customers.
Good. Great example about the on-prem and moving to cloud. I think it's going to resonate to a lot of people in the audience. Second question, what ongoing role do you expect your C-level team to play in your team's success?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And customer success is the ultimate, cross-functional organization, right? And as we've helped our customers stand up customer success practices inside their companies, it's kind of amazing how it just kind of bleeds out horizontally into, ops and IT and marketing. And so the ask for the C-level executives that are responsible for the specific business units is, number one, awareness, right? So yeah, I'm going to set up a cadence of communication, come to the meetings, engage in the meetings. Awareness is number one. Number two, engagement, meaning there should be a connection. If you're the chief marketing officer, for example, Alex, and I'm running customer success, there should be a correlation between my work and what the CMO is trying to accomplish. And again, if that connection isn't clear, play offense and make sure that it is clear. Because if me as the customer success leader, if I'm responsible for the communication stream to the existing customer base, that has a heavy marketing emphasis, right? Like, what are we telling them? How are we communicating? What does it look like? What are those messages? What's the frequency of those messages? Are we stepping on each other? Do we need to coordinate that? So I think it's a level of awareness followed by a level of engagement. And then third is just finally just an overarching support and a belief in what you're trying to do. Just like you're trying to create advocates in your customer base, you're trying to create advocates with your C-level team as well. And I would follow a similar process, right? It doesn't happen in one meeting. It doesn't happen in one conversation or one presentation. But over time, creating advocates internally will be a huge part of your success.
Good. Advocacy with the C-suite over time. The next question is, what are best practices in creating quantitative goals for investment in CS without placing the team at risk of overreaching and failing?
Yeah, I think the biggest risk to failure that I've seen, and so this, I'm kind of answering the opposite question. So this is a worst practice, not a best practice. And I'll get to the best practice in a second. But the worst practice is committing to moving financial needles too fast. A lot of companies don't really have a good baseline on their data to begin with, number one. Number two, if you are engaging with a customer base that perhaps has been, at least a segment of it, has been neglected or been engaged with in a choppy way, or perhaps you've had a high turnover rate with your CSMs, committing to, we are going to lift our renewal rate, or we're going to drop churn, or whatever the metric is, without knowing, is problematic. I would not do that. The best practice that I've seen is along that maturity continuum that I've seen. And it's the ability to communicate. We are here today as a customer success organization. We are moving in the next 12 months here. Here are the stops along the way and the capabilities that we're building into the organization that will enable us to do the following things that will then consequently be able to move the needle reasonably on our metrics. But too often we run to the lagging indicators and we get bogged down and tied to a lagging indicator when we haven't laid out the process of how we're actually going to get there. To me, that's the hard part. It's easy to say I'd like my renewal rate to go up by 20 points because of my engagement, but I don't even have any of the steps or any of the methodology in place to actually make that happen. I think the emphasis is on the maturity and the development of the customer success org so that your capabilities expand to the point where it is reasonable to expect an increase in renewal rate.
Okay, you talked about data, and be curious to have your opinion on access to data. The question is, would you pitch investment in data prior to anything else if the company has thousands of small customers? And I will just add, how would you pitch that?
So I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that question, Alex.
The question is, would you pitch investment in data prior to anything else if the company has thousands of small customers?
Yeah,
no ARR, basically.
Right. Yeah. So I would, but I would come at it from a little bit of a different angle. So good data would be the centerpiece of what I'm going to say. But to me, I would look at that. The headline of what I'm solving would be a digital customer success practice, which is another, massive gap that we see in the marketplace. So yes, to do a digital customer success practice, I would need customer data. I would make that investment, but then I would take the next step to determine, what am I doing with that data? How am I communicating with that customer base? What help do I need from other organizations? What role does a human play in that, right? Because a digital customer success practice relies on data and automation, but there also needs to be a human element to catch any of the corner cases.
Okay, good. Michael, thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation, your engagement during this session. It was great. It was a pleasure.